In this exercise titled Scratch Tutorial Polygons, we're going to learn Scratch by drawing a polygon, doing some math, making the sprite move. We'll learn programming, and as always, if you follow along and draw as I do or write your code as I do, I believe you learn more. Let's get the screen cleared. I'll click on File New, and we'll begin. We'll begin our project by selecting an event control. If I click on events, I have different things that can happen that can cause code to run. I want to use when key is pressed. When I press the space bar, I want the code to run, and let me look at it. If I open the list box, I can say I have any number of other keys I can use, but spacebar works well for me. Since we're drawing polygons, the next thing I want him to do is to use the pen. So I'll say pen down. I've learned that you have to have the pen down on the stage in order to draw a line. And I think we need him to move someplace. So I'm going to get the first command. It says move 10 steps. You notice when I drag this over here, if I get it close to another command that it appropriately connects to, there's this white bar that shows up. If I just simply let go, it'll attach. So I don't have to get really close and make it line up. You just get it close enough, it'll automatically attach. If I press spacebar, I should be able to get my line, but I don't see a line. I'll move the sprite to see. Oh, there it is. Well, that is my line, but it seems kind of short and he seems to cover it. Well, let's see if we can fix those. First thing I'm going to do is make the move to 30 steps. Yeah, that'll do it. And then I'm going to press spacebar again, and there's 30. Oh, but it's not the same place. Does that mean wherever I put him, it does 30? Oh, it does. Okay, well that was good, except he still covers it. So let's try something else. Let's go to looks. And in looks, I remember that we can change or set the size to a certain percentage of his original size. So I'm thinking I'm going to do that first. And he's 100% size now. If I say 10%, that means he'll be 1/10 the size he is now. Let's try that. I'll press spacebar. Oh, he's smaller. I can see my line. And if I can put him in the middle. Where's the middle? Well, if I look down below, did you notice all of these numbers changing while I move him? If I move from side to side, the X changes. I'll leave it at 0. If I move up and down, the Y changes. And I want to be 0, 0, but you know, this is too hard to do. How do you do this? There's got to be an easier way. So, and there is. I often use rhetorical questions to help us think about what we need to do. Here's a command that says go to the X and the Y. I'm going to do that too. I'll put it right up in here. Did you notice that when I move that up, I can actually slide it up into the order of the commands, and wherever that white line is, it will insert itself? So if I want him to go to 0, 0, I'll just click in this circle and make it 0, 0. Let's try this. Well, I guess he went to 0, 0. I'm going to move it over here and try it again. Oh, it drew a line from there, but it still made him go to 0, 0 and draw my line. Well, at least that part works. But I've got all these lines on here. Can I get rid of them? Let's take a look at, let's go back to pen. That's what drew it in the first place. Ah, I saw that earlier. A clear command. Well, if I were to put that clear command at the very beginning, it will clear it and then do this. Let's try that. Spacebar. It must have done it. So I'll put him off over here, and he drew that line. Well, apparently, it did exactly what I told him to do. If I move him away and I press the spacebar, it's going to go to 0, 0 with the pen down after it clears it. Okay, well, I'm thinking that if I just leave it there, that'll be fine for now. There is another command we are going to use later, but let's continue with this project. So I can get him to move 10 spaces or 30 spaces, but I need him to turn. Now I left a little scratch space over here. Yes, pun intended. I'm going to use paint to help describe what we want to do. He's currently going from one side to the other. He's going toward the right, and I need him to change direction by 90 degrees. I remember that 90 degrees is a corner because I want him to go down. My first polygon I'm drawing is going to be a square, And I know that if I can do that 4 times, I should end up with a square. So I need to go back and change his motion. Can he turn? He can. So if I put this here and say turn 90 and press spacebar, he turned 90. Oh, but he didn't move. I'll have to make him move another 30 steps. There he goes. I'll try it again. So why is it going all over? It's probably because of the way we began our code. We need to tell him to go a particular direction because he's starting from wherever he left off. That's what it looks like to me. So back to motion, and I need him to point in a, oh, here it is, point in a direction. Now, I think I'm going to get him to point in a direction that goes up, because I'd like to draw my square up, over, down, and back to 0. So is there a way to know which one is up? If I open the list box, that's what these arrows do, they open list box. Oh, good, 0 is up. So I'm going to choose up, and I'll press my space bar. There's my square. Oh yes, remember that? Whenever I tell him to go back to 0, it draws a line. So let's see if we can fix that now. Let's save the clear until I get him back to 0. So my sprite will now change its size by 10 or down to 10% of original. Go to 0, 0, point in the right direction, then clear the screen, and then put the pen down and draw the box. Let's see if it will do what we asked to do, because now we've got the right order for our instructions. Ah, that looks good. So far, so good. Well, I need to get him to do 2 more sides, so I think if I pull this down long enough for me to right-click and choose duplicate, I can get some extra code. There's one. Well, I got it connected. And I'll right-click and duplicate again. And now I can put this code together. And let's try this. I'll press spacebar, and I have my first polygon, my first square. Oh, I want to do triangles and pentagons and hexagons and septagons and octagons and, well, ninagons. I don't know what a ninagon is, but I want to do one. And that's going to be a lot of these. Oh, we have to find an easier way to do this. So I know I have to move and turn, so I'm going to take this and set it off to the side. Anytime you grab code and you drag it off the field or off this programming space, it disappears. You can drag it and leave it, and it won't be used if it's not attached to any part of the code that gets activated, some event or control. So I have this now, but I need this. I want this to do this 4 times. I think in control I can find something that will repeat, and here it is. If I take this repeat, it looks like a Pac-Man. For those who've been around a while, you know what that is. I'll put it over. It looks like it's going to fit right in between there. Does that mean I have to move the blue ones? No, it took them right in. So this is going to repeat 10. No. I only have 4 sides. 4 times. That's all I need. I'll press spacebar, and I actually saw my sprite move. It cleared it and drew 4. Well, that solved what I need for a rectangle. Do I have to do this over and over for a triangle? Let's try a triangle. I'm just going to figure out what the values are. If I put 3, spacebar, it'll do 3 sides, but I need him to turn more. So let's go to our scratch pad and take a look at that. Don't need that. So now he's going up. So if I choose line drawing tool and draw a line, this is the first line that he draws. He just goes up, and then I need him to turn, let's see, not that way, but kind of like, well, he needs to turn by 1/3 of the the whole circle all the way around. Ah, that's an idea. If he turns 1/3 of the whole circle, what is that? Well, do you remember that a circle is let's see if I can get a paintbrush here, is 360 degrees? If I take a circle, 360, and divide it by 3, it's going to be 120. So instead of turning from here to 90, now he's going to turn all the way down here to 90 plus, well, another 30 because I need it to be a third, so 120 degrees. Let's try that. Let's try that. I'm going to try 120, 120, and spacebar. It did it. I have my triangle. That was pretty handy. Well, if I can just get this code to do this math, then I don't have to do it all the time. And isn't that what we want to do, is if we have a computer that will do the math for us, get it to do that? So what is the difference here? 360. Well, what about our square? If we had 4 in here, 4 sides, 360 divided by 4, that's 90. That's the angle that we used before. This looks like the formula that we need for whatever number of sides. If we divide 360 by the number of sides, we can find out what the angle is inside, or the angle that it needs to turn on the outside, rather. The inside is a different rule. So we're going to turn from the outside. Let's try that. So back to our code. Well, I think I need it to go from 3 to 4 to 5, and I want that to be repeated. So I'm going to get another repeat and put it in here, and I want it to do it 3 times, and I want to start with 3 sides and then go to 4 sides and 5 sides, but I don't want to type it in. So now I need to do something new. I need to actually put something in here that will keep track of which side, how many sides my polygon's going to have, and that's where I'm going to use data. So I'm going to click on the control for data and make a variable. Now this is pretty high tech, making a variable. What it's doing is it's creating a space on the computer that will store information that I either put in or it gets calculated. And this is going to be sides, I guess, S-I-D-E-S. So we'll do that. And now I have sides and I can do stuff. I can say set them, change them, show them, and hide them. Okay, so yay. So sides. I think if I want it to be repeated 3 times, I need to put sides in there. Oh, and I think I need to be able to set sides. So before we even draw, we'll set sides. See what I've done? So now I'll say I want the sides to be 3, and I want this to happen 3 times because I want to draw my triangle first. So we'll start with 3, and then we'll change our sides by 1. Yeah, that'll work. So here's the idea. Every time I come into this, sides is going to equal 3. I draw 30 steps, but I have to change this degrees to be automatic. That's where that math formula came in. Now, this is where we can use the math operators. So I'll click on the green one for operators, and I need to find, did you ever notice that some of these things that are round or square, they tend to fit? The programmers for this, they made the shapes match. It's either logical or it's a calculated value, and we're going to use that. So we want division. I'll grab this one and I'll put it in place of 120 degrees because from now on I want this to do the math itself. The first number I used was 360. 360 for 360 degrees in an entire circle. If you measure the outside of all of them, that's what it'll add up to. And then we divide that by the number of sides. Well, if I go back to data, I should be able to grab sides and put it in there. It did it. Now I don't want sides to show up on my screen, so I'm going to turn that off. That's what this checkbox does. Good, that takes care of that. So, well, this is a little weird. I set sides is going to equal 3, do it 3 times, take sides and do this math and change sides by 1. And I'll press spacebar. Whoa, that's not what I'm after. That almost looks like a Fibonacci code. It's not, but it looks like it. Or a conch shell or a spiral. Well, if you want to make spirals, copy the code. It seems like it changes angles each time it does it. So, but we want our triangle. I'm going to press it again to see if we can get our triangle. No, for some reason, we didn't get our triangle. So let's take a look at our math and see what we've done. Do you see it? Each time we step, we change the number of sides. So each side that we do changes the number of sides and changes this math. This needs to be moved outside to here. Let's see what that does. Whoa, it looks like we have what we're after. We have a triangle, a square, and a pentagon. Pentagon, that means 5 sides. Square, 4 sides, triangle. This side is shared. I wonder if we can get that to move. Well, let's look at that later. Getting these to be a separate objects. So what would happen if we change this to 6? So we're going to do 6 polygons. Each time we do it, we're going to increase the number of sides. And I'll press space. Oh, that looks good. Oh, I'm going to try even more. I'm going to try 12. Well, there are all my polygons. But that's not what the example looked like when we first started. See, we could quit here, but a good coder will look for opportunities to improve what they've done. And I think our goal, we still have some things to try. So one is, I think I'd like to change the color. So to do that, let's change the color as we draw a polygon. For each polygon, we're going to change the color a little bit. So let's see. I'll go to our tools, our pen, and we're going to change color by 10. Now, if I put it inside this loop, each of the sides will get a new color. If I put it inside this loop, then each of the polygons will get a new color. Do you see the logic? Let's try that. I'll press spacebar, and I do get different colors. Okay, good. I would like my polygons to be separated and not touching all the time. So we're going to create some offsets and see what that does for us. Okay, to do this, let's change where we draw. After we've drawn a polygon, let's change where we are. We've learned that if we change here, we can change things that happen to the next polygon. So I'm going to have our sprite move, and I think I'll just change in the X and the Y by using this control. I'll put it in here. I want to change X by, well, I think if this is the triangle and I want the triangle to be inside the square, I'm going to move the square in a negative direction as far as X is concerned. Can you see that X number getting bigger? So if I move the X this way, that should do it. So I'm going to do it by a negative, well, let's just move a couple lines, a couple pixels. So, and that's what each of these values, I believe, is 1 step or 1 pixel. That's one way to think of it. I'm going to try that and see what that does. Okay, they're kind of not touching, except they're still touching here. So I think I'll do it again, and I'll make it minus 3 pixels. There we go. But they're still touching. I'm going to guess, or are they really? Well, let's take a look. We'll expand this by clicking this control, and as I look, well, it looks like I'm getting an extra line in there, and they're still touching. So, well, let's see if we can solve this. It turns out that each of my polygons have the same size of sides. If I increase the sides, each of these polygons can get bigger and give us more room. So I'm going to actually change the sides by adding more steps. And to do that, I'll use data, and I'll click on change sides by, wait, there's no steps. Well, it turns out that can really fool you if you don't remember that you have to make a new variable. I'll click make new variable, and I'll type in steps, S-T-E-P-S. So now steps is a variable, and No, I don't want steps to show. And the only way to do this, set steps, change steps, change steps. Change steps by, and since it's going to be at each polygon, I can put it here. Change steps by 1. But I don't have steps in here. I have 30. Well, I have to take the variable for steps and put it in there so it can change that by 1. But now up here I have to actually say that steps is equal to 30 when we begin. So I'll have to set steps to be 30. Okay, that did it. Now let's see what it does. Press spacebar. I do have more space, but I think I want more. So I'm going to change steps by 4. Once this is done, if it's what we want, well, they are getting bigger. Oh, and you know this from your other experiences with Scratch, that when you hit the outside edge, it actually bounces and goes to the outside edge and then starts its math over again. When it hits here, it starts its math over again. That's why we get this change. So, but it looks like we're going up too far. We need to actually move our polygons down while we make them, and maybe even back as we make them. So I'm going to move them back farther. And to do that, that's that -3. I'm going to make it a -4. See if that helps. And I also want them to go down a little bit. So, because we're getting space up here. So to do that, I think I'll change Y by grabbing the control. There's change X. Change Y, there it is. I'll add it. And do you notice I'm trying to create some order like in just kind of keeping track of things. I would like to know that my change X and my change Y are kind of close together, so it's easy to read my code. In this code, we don't get to put comments. That's where you put little notes beside each instruction, kind of explaining what happens. But that's okay. We'll work with what we have. Okay, it's getting better, except I have this connection here. And no matter how many steps I do, oh, I see. Our pen is still drawing all of the time. We need to tell it to pick up the pen and not draw when it steps from one to the next polygon. Well, I know how to do it. We just have to figure out where to do it. So when it comes into our code, it draws a polygon inside this first loop, and then it makes the changes. And where does it actually move? It moves in here. So I think we need to pick up the pen outside of here and put it back down when we're done. So let's do that. Pen. There it is, pen up. So when we come to do this, the pen gets lifted up, and then we make our changes. This is where our sprite actually does its stepping to the back and down a little bit. And so after that is done, then we'll put pen down. Okay, so that's kind of like if we were to draw this by hand. We draw one polygon, we lift up our pen, we move our pen to the new place, and we put our pen down, and following these rules, we draw our polygon again. Let's try that. Ah, the line is missing. Good. But we still have some irregular stuff going on here, hitting the wall. We'll have to make some more adjustments. Well, in looking at this, it seems like my start could be moved over. So I'm going to go back up to here, and I'll have to tell you, I already did some measuring, and it looks like a -40 for the X for a starting position, and maybe a -15. And we can justify these, because if the middle of our triangle is where the tip of my arrow is, and that's 0, 0, then I want to start down here, which means I have to go back, or -X and -Y for my starting position. I'm going to try that, see what that does for us. Well, it did move it, and it doesn't hit the outside edges except for here. So it looks like if we can just get it to space out in this direction a little bit farther, in other words, if we can change our X a little bit more, Oh, here's what we can do. Notice the space between the tip of the triangle and the edge of the square. And then we'll do it again, the tip of the pentagon and the edge of the hexagon. Wait, there's a pattern here. There's a tip and an edge, and a tip and an edge. And every time I look at these, they're getting bigger. Well, there's two things to notice here. One's the fact that it is getting bigger, and the other is, why is there always a point and a side? Well, if we look at our original ones, this has three sides, which makes it odd, which gives a point, and the square has four sides, which is even, which creates a side. Let's see if that pattern is true for the rest of our polygons. 6 is even, 10 is even. No, this is 8. That's octagon. 8 is even. This is 9. This is 10. Yep, it looks like that is the case. Well, if this space is getting bigger, we need to make this space bigger. But it's only getting bigger as our polygons grow. So we have to think of a way where we can gradually get these sides to be bigger based on how many sides they are. Well, that sounds like another math thing to me. So let's see, what can we do down here? We can change x by, right now it says 4. Let's try putting a formula in there. I'm going to go to operators, and we're going to say change x by, we'll use this. Change x by a -1 divided by however many sides there are. Can we do that? And where are sides? Go to our data, get the variable for sides. So I want the negative there because if I made it positive, it would just go the other direction. So if there's 3 sides, it's a -3. If it's 4 sides, it's a -4, 5, a -5, and it gets bigger. Let's try this and see what it does. And it doesn't do anything. Well, yes, it does. It makes my sides smaller and smaller. So division isn't what we want here. I'll take that, I'll set it aside, it disappears. Go back to my operators. Now I'll try one called multiplication, and I'll put that in for change sides by. I'm still going to put in the -1, and I'm still going to use the variable sides. So now it really will be, if there's 4 sides, it's times a -1. We'll try that now. Oh, that looks good. In fact, that looks almost perfect. I wonder if I can get it to offset just a little bit more when it starts. So to do that, I think I'll try changing this to be a -1.5, a -1.5. We can do that. And spacebar. Oh, we're almost there. I think we went too far. One last change, and I think we'll be fine. Let's make it a 1.3. That looks good. Except my sprite is way out here. I'd like him to go back in the middle. So where is the middle? If I put my mouse there, the tip of the pointer looks like it's a -33 and a 1, and I actually know for sure it's -33 and a 0. 1's close enough. So let's do that. Let's get him to go there. And when would we do that? If we put him in here, if you put him in, when you go from one polygon to the next, put lines all over. So where do we put it? When it's done with the last polygon, it actually comes out here. So this should be where I put my code. So I'm going to go to the motion and get it to go to. Where's go to? There we are. I'll place that here. And what was the values I saw? I'm looking at this scale right here. If I put my pointer there, it looks like a -34, 0. I'm going to try that. So -34 and 0. And what else? Well, let's try that. It did it. Oh, it did exactly what I said to do. It said to just go there, and the pen is still down. So we need to lift our pen up before we go there. Well, that's easy to do. We've done that before. I'll reach in here, I'll get pen up, and I'll insert it before we go someplace new. And I'll adjust this so the code fits in nicely, and I'll press spacebar. And now we have our 12 polygons equally centered, changing colors. I think this is good. I'd like you to play around with this code a little bit. You can change the number of sides, the steps. You can see what to do. Or what would happen if we took this code and put it inside this code and put it inside one more repeat? Only we change the starting location. And that starting location might be here, or here, or here, or here, and then have it move to each of those places. What would that design look like? These and other things you can try. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on getting used to Introduction to Scratch and Polygons. Okay, for my students, I have one more exercise to do, and that is to save your file. So we'll click on File, Save. If this is the first time you're saving it, it will open up a dialog box and let you choose. If it's not, you may have to open up that dialog box and you choose Save As. So we're going to find your server folder, save it in your server folder. For me, I'm just going to save this in this folder, and we'll call it Polygon.